Hi everyone and welcome to this evening's webinar, Careers in VFX. I'm Claire Vandenbroek. I'm on the admissions team at Escape Studios and tonight we're at MPC and we've got two guest speakers joining us. We've got Ben Owens, who's the Global Head of Recruitment at MPC, and Anna Swift, who's the Recruitment and Talent Development Manager for Film at Framestore. Now, Ben and Anna will be talking about skill demands, career prospects, and sharing their top tips on how to produce that killer showreel to help launch your career in the VFX industry. Now, after an introduction from both Ben and Anna, we'll move on to some questions, which you guys have kindly submitted. And if we have time, we'll take questions from anybody watching. So please feel free to submit them via the questions box. I'll be back at the end to tell you what's happening here at Escape and about the training we provide. But for now, I will hand over to Ben.
Thank you. So I'm Ben Owen. I have been working in recruitment for well over 10 years, the last 8 years of which have been spent specifically looking after recruitment for visual effects. I've been working for small boutique studios right up to the large VFX houses, and where I am now is MPC. I'm Global Head of Recruitment, looking after all hiring across MPC's multiple locations. MPC as a studio has been around for well over 30 years. Working across TV advertising and film, my responsibility is primarily looking after the film side of it. Working mainly in London. London's our biggest hub, but we also have visual effects for film done out of Vancouver, Bangalore, and Montreal. Over the last few years, we've seen MPC grow beyond all recognition to now having over 1,200 employees globally.
Thanks very much, Ben. I'll hand over to Anna.
Hi everyone, my name's Anna. I'm the Recruitment and Talent Development Manager at Framestore. So I work on the film side of the business, and my role is to recruit talent into the company at all levels across all disciplines. I also look after all the development of the junior members of staff, so the runners, trackers, paint and roto artists, work out how we can progress them through the company, ensure they have the right skill sets that we need, that sort of thing. So Framestore has been around since the mid-80s. We're super big at the moment, about 1,100 artists globally. So our main headquarters are in London. We also have offices in LA and New York, which focuses on the commercial side of the business. And the Montreal office opened last year, and that's purely film related. We've had a very, very busy year this year. Obviously, we won the Oscar for Gravity, which was amazing. And we're really, really looking to continue to bring talent into the company from junior level upwards.
Brilliant, thanks very much. Okay, so obviously we've got some questions here, so I'm just going to kind of ask them, and please feel free to share the answers between you. So we've got a question from David. He's asking, if we can produce the result in any software, will the company still consider us for the job, even if they don't use that particular software?
I'll go for that one. So software is definitely important for a studio. I would say the primary softwares here at MPC are Maya, Nuke, RenderMan. So having familiarity with any combination of the softwares we already use is an advantage. But we also have a host of proprietary toolkits that have been designed in-house. So coming into certain departments at MPC, you won't have the access to those tools. Therefore, you'll have to learn them from scratch anyway. We look for potential. We do have a lot of in-house training to get candidates up to speed. When a candidate doesn't have the software skills, as long as we have the time, then there's nothing to stop us from bringing them in and training them up.
And that's exactly the same for Framestore. You know, we find the software is an add-on, really. It's more about the work that an artist can produce, no matter what software it's on. And as Ben says, you know, we offer full training. And you know, the majority of softwares, there's the odd tweak between them that make them different, but they're all, you know, they're all doing the same thing. So people tend to pick them up quite quickly.
Excellent.
Certainly at the junior level, if someone does have the software that we use, it will make it easier in the long run for us to bring them in-house.
Yeah.
And candidates also need to consider the fact that we have hundreds of applications coming in every week, and anything they can do to better their chances of fitting in with a studio is going to be an advantage.
It also depends on what time of a project we're hiring. If it's right at the end at crunch time, obviously we do rely on people to know the software so they can just sort of come in and hit the floor running and get on with it. If it's early on in the project, then as Ben said, you know, you've got a bit more luxury of training time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Excellent. Okay, let's go to a question from Sam Serridge. Are there more freelance opportunities for concept artists, or are there still a broad range of full-time roles out there suited to them?
For Framestore, we have a concept art department at Framestore. It's mainly made up of staff positions, the people that stay at Framestore for the duration, but we also hire people in for specific projects as freelancers. Some of our concept artists can also matte paint as well, so what we like to do is hire people, you know, on a long-term contract, and if ever it's a bit quiet in concept, then they might do a bit of matte painting just to sort of fill the gaps. So yeah, I mean, the concept team is very small at Framestore, so there's not really the volume there compared to, say, compositors, for example, but there are still opportunities, both short-term and long-term.
I'd agree with that completely. At MPC, the in-house art department is relatively small compared to the other departments. However, we do have an extensive contact list of freelancers. In fact, it's one of the only departments that still uses freelancers in the traditional sense of the word, in that we'll bring somebody in for a project, as Anna was saying, and have them work for maybe a matter of days at a time, sometimes remotely. So for concept art, there are freelance opportunities, certainly.
Excellent. Okay, let's go to a question from Will Jones. This is via Twitter at 360effects, and he's asking, as the industry is constantly growing and getting more competitive, is it getting harder to find a job?
The industry is definitely growing faster than it's ever grown before, certainly in the last few years. All of the London studios have doubled or even trebled in size. There are bigger projects coming up all the time, and with that are more opportunities. So whether it's harder to find a job, I would say there's more opportunity now than there ever has been. So it's a good time for graduates and candidates in general to be looking to enter visual effects.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always going to be competitive because the level that we require to come into all of our studios is so very high. But I think, you know, the more people listen to what studios need in terms of softwares and style of work and stuff like that will really help people, and also having realistic expectations as well. So, you know, someone might finish at Escape or finish a university course and say, yeah, I definitely want to be a creature modeler and nothing else. Chances are that's not how you're going to get in straight away. So,
yeah.
you know, it's best for people not to rule themselves out by being a bit too picky.
Yeah, I see. That's some good advice. Now, I've got one from Skylar, again via Twitter. How do you get into feature film from TV commercial experience?
Have a good showreel.
That's what it does come down to. It's all about the work that candidates put forward, and a huge amount of skills are transferable whether you're working in advertising or film. I think both of our studios cater for advertising and film, and we do have crossover. Often it comes down to the artist's preference as to where they want to go, but in terms of what we look for somebody who wants to be involved in a feature project, which is often much longer term, and someone needs to understand exactly what's involved. Advertising projects are often shorter, and somebody can move easily from one to another. Someone coming from a generalist background who wants to move into film may need to specialize. Certainly from MPC's point of view, we have a department-based structure, and all artists within that discipline are seated together. In order to get to the skill level needed for film work, you'll have to be specialized. You certainly won't have the opportunity to do more than one task on a project, you may spend 6 or 8 months purely animating those shots.
Yeah, it's exactly the same at Framestore, really. I mean, I think some of the smaller studios do hire, and some of the bigger studios hire generalist TDs, so that would be quite a straightforward transition, because obviously in commercials people tend to be a bit more generalist. But it, it's not impossible, but as Ben says, you do have to focus on one particular area and sort of hone your skills in that area. And then once you're in, then then that's when you can sort of move around. Our asset build team at Framestore, so the modelers, some of them can texture as well, and we let them do both when we can. But it is pretty much separated for departments.
Yeah.
When it comes to either transitioning across from more of an advertising background or from outside the industry, it's about making sure that as an artist you can show your potential, that your showreel helps us to see how you as an artist would fit in within the film side of the business. If you can do that, then we can bring you on board.
So even though they might want to move into a more kind of generalist advanced role, if they show that willing and that talent in their showreel but apply for just a very specific job, you guys could then see that potential and bring them on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We've hired some of our compositors that we've hired this year. Their background was working for sort of studios that covered TV and commercials, and they had a more sort of generalist skill set. So we brought them on, and they sort of honed their comp skills a bit more with us. But the fact that they've got the understanding of the other areas of the pipeline that a generalist has helped them with their comp work, because they know the relationship between compositing and lighting, so on and so forth.
Coming from, I think, a generalist background as well into a more specialist environment such as that of film, you'd need to be aware that your level may be lower. So somebody who's considered perhaps a senior within a more generalist role, coming into the specialist field would maybe start at a more junior level to begin with, whilst their skills get up to the required level.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. Let's move on to Dave Houston. Is understanding a pipeline as important as understanding the software itself? Who wants to take that one?
So I think we're looking at two separate things. So certainly understanding the software is important, but software can be learnt. Pipelines change from studio to studio, whereas the software skills can easily be taken from one place and plugged in a new location. The pipeline is also always evolving. I don't think any studio is ever going to turn around and say that they have the perfect pipeline. No. And as software continues to evolve, so do pipelines. They look at new software and new ways of doing the work that we do. So having an understanding of how a large film pipeline works is good, but it's something that can be picked up.
Yeah, it's not essential at all. And as Ben said, it can change from company to company and also show to show. We're often changing how we do our shows here at Framestore. I think the one thing that's kind of missing from that question is the actual skill to do the job that you use the software for and put it into the pipeline. Because if you're not understanding the basic principles of animation, for example, you're not going to get anywhere. So they're a kind of add-on for us, really. As Ben said, they're things that can be learned and developed once you're in MPC or Framestore.
Excellent. Okay, cool. John Saunders would like to know, what would you look for in reels for a junior without industry experience straight from graduating?
So this is a question that we always get.
Oh, good. I'm glad I asked.
And I think the key thing we look for in any graduate showreel is potential. We are looking for not just the enthusiasm for the industry that we're in, but also that raw talent, understanding that a candidate can come in and learn the way we do things and use what skills they've learnt over the course of their education or their background within our environment.
Yeah, and I think you know, the importance of teamwork is, you know, a really good soft skill that people, obviously you can't put that on your show reel, but if your show reel shows clear breakdowns and then demonstrates that you've worked in a team, but you've done the modelling or you've done the lighting, that's really important for us to see. You know, it's really, really good for us to see how people got from sort of start to end of a shot, or maybe looking at some concepts and then looking at different, you know, versions of models, so on and so forth. But it's, you know, honing your skills to what the studio does. So at Framestore, all of our visual effects is pure, you know, photo real visual effects. So if we get a lot of show reels that are quite cartoony style, it's really hard for us to see how that candidate will fit into our departments. So it's sort of doing your research, understanding the sort of work that you'd need to do, and making sure that's on your show reel, whether it be personal projects, group projects, individual projects, making sure everything's got breakdowns on it, clearly marked what you did, and that's what we're looking for. No longer than a minute, really, for entry-level positions, we'd say.
As a junior, we are very aware that you won't have industry experience, and we're not looking for something to be perfect or something to be very complex. Often the examples that really show someone's potential are the simplest ones that have just been realized very, very well. And I would say anything that you put on a show reel, you should be completely happy with. If you have a doubt about any of the work that you have on there, take it away, even if it's shortening the length of your reel. We would rather see well-finished work rather than work in progress.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity, isn't
Most
it?
definitely.
Really, for that.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on to oh, this is a good one, from Harry Horton. If you've applied for a job at a studio and you know the name of the recruiter, should you connect with them on LinkedIn when you apply so that they recognise your name, or would this be frowned upon?
Yes, definitely.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is the primary networking tool that we all as recruiters use, and we want to be able to keep in touch with candidates who are interested in working at our studios. Find us on LinkedIn, connect with us. Now, how much ongoing contact you have with us after that should be kept in check. We don't want to be spammed by candidates, but whenever someone creates a new piece of work that's relevant, we want to know about it. And likewise, through LinkedIn, we send out updates not just about positions coming up, but also news about the studio. Certainly, MPC has a news feed that goes out talking about any new projects as we win them, and it's a great way to keep informed of what's happening.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, encourage LinkedIn, and I think, you know, LinkedIn is a professional networking tool. Leave it at LinkedIn, don't try Facebook. Unless you're our friends anyway in real life. But you know, sometimes you get, you know, followed on Twitter, and then you get your Facebook and all sorts. So yeah, try and keep it professional with LinkedIn.
Fair enough, yeah. And is age a problem when it comes to working in the VFX industry?
No, I don't think it is at all.
Not at all. It doesn't really factor in, because what we look at is an individual's ability. We're looking at their work, and I don't think age factors in. It's all about the skills that they've developed. If we can see them fitting in based on the work produced, then that's what we'll go on.
Yeah, it's all skill. That's what we look at, and that's, you know, the first and last thing that we'll look at.
We also have lots of artists who have joined us after a career change.
Yeah.
They may have started in a different career linked to visual effects, or sometimes not, and they decide they want to change. We certainly have lots of people who have joined us later in life who wanted to try something new and exciting.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Oh yeah, what about if someone has had intervals of work between jobs involving 3D that might be different? So for example, such as like graphic design, should that be included in the CV?
Yeah, I think so. It's always good to show us exactly what you've been doing. Although you might think it's not relevant, it's always good to cover any gaps that you might have. So, you know, if you've been working in retail, or if you've been working at local hospital. I don't know, you know, you should put those things on your CV because it does show us that you've been in continuous employment. It also shows that you're good at teamwork, admin skills, that kind of thing. Which is still relevant to being an artist, believe it or not. But it's, you know, some people have separate, you know, they'll have all their visual effects stuff at the top and then, you know, a bit at the bottom that just says, you know, from 2008 to 2010, I was a graphic designer or whatever. It's entirely up to you how you do it, but do you get it on your CV?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Include everywhere that you've worked, but maybe shift the focus, spend more time detailing the relevant experience that you have, rather than anything that wasn't directly related to the career that you're after.
Okay, cool. So let's go back to David, who sent in quite a few questions. So he's asking, once I'm done with my showreel, should I apply for junior position jobs or for an internship since I've no experience?
Well, and this might be different for Framestore, but from MPC's perspective, once someone's graduated, we would want to bring them in as a junior artist within the field that they want to focus on. I keep coming back to that specialist approach. If somebody knows, for example, that they want to be a lighting TD or compositor, then that's what we want to consider them for. We do have undergraduate internships, but those are primarily aimed at students who have at least a year or more of study left. We don't use postgraduate internships. We'd rather bring an artist in directly into MPC's training program, for example. We have the MPC Academy, which is designed specifically to take in graduates and fast track them up to being production ready.
Yeah, and for Framestore, I mean, we you know, we'd encourage people to apply for the areas that they're specialising in, but depending on, you know, when someone's applying and where we are with shows means that we might not be hiring effects for another 6 months, for example. So it's good to sort of think about, you know, entry-level jobs that can get you to that same point as well. So we offer training for all of our runners that we hire. So our runners are fully trained in tracking and paint and roto, with the aim that they're promoted into those departments, you know, within a year. From those departments, so for effects, for example, you would then go into tracking for a bit and then up to effects. However, you know, if you're running with us and you're tracking training, we'd still sort out an effects mentor for you. So if a junior effects role came up and you were good enough, obviously we'd always look to people who are in-house already before we hired externally. So I've kind of waffled there, but it does depend on, you know, where we're at with our recruitment needs as well.
Excellent. Okay. What I'm going to do is, we've got quite a lot of questions which have been submitted. So I think there was a really nice one that we started with that I picked up at the beginning. If you've kind of applied for a position, or you've just sent through your showreel and there isn't maybe anything going at the moment, if they haven't heard back from you, how long should they wait before they apply to you guys again? Is there a specific time frame?
I mean, we both use the same database for tracking candidates, so it allows people to update their showreels continuously, and we get an alert that a showreel's been updated.
Okay.
So that means that people don't have to keep applying for the same role. They can just refresh their reel.
So once somebody applies to either Framestore or MPC, they create a profile on our recruitment database, and they'll have login details, which enables them to go back in and update either show reels or availability or contact details whenever they're updated. And once updated, an email goes out to us in the recruitment team to let us know a candidate has gone in and changed something about their work. So it's always good to keep us updated on anything that's changed, because we want to have a candidate's most relevant work in front of us at all times, ready for a position to come available. But it needs to be work that is different. So we don't want to see the same thing being applied for again and again. We want to see something new. We keep hold of candidates' details. They may not hear from us for 3, 6, maybe even 12 months. That doesn't mean that we've forgotten about them. It just means that we don't have a suitable position matching their skills at that time.
Yeah.
And the first thing we do when positions do come up is go straight into the database, look at who's expressed an interest in that area and who has the right skills, and then we contact the candidate to see if they're free and interested in having a further chat.
I mean, it's hard. I understand it's frustrating when you don't hear back from recruiters, but we get thousands of applications a week. So unfortunately, we don't have the time to sort of personally respond to everyone. One thing to sort of note as well, with the recruitment database that Framestore and MPC use, we can see which roles people have applied for. So it obviously does enable you to apply for more than one position. But when we see that someone's applied for every role in the company from, I don't know, CG supervisor to runner, then that can sort of raise some alarm bells for us as to how focused they are and what they want to do. So just be careful of sort of spamming and applying to everything, really, because we can see that at the back end.
Yeah. Okay, that's actually answered the next question I was going to ask, because somebody said, can you apply for various positions in a studio, match mover and runner, for example?
You certainly can, just don't apply for every position that's advertised.
If they're kind of related, we have people like, that can do lighting and comp, so they might apply for both. But yeah, if you've got someone who's applying for every single artist role and a runner role and the receptionist role, then yeah, that's where you sort of start asking questions.
Maybe choose the 3 or 4 that you're most interested in, because it also helps us to understand how someone would fit in. If someone's applied for every role, then we need to go back to them and find out what they really want to do.
Okay, awesome. So somebody's asking, sorry, I can't see the names when I'm bringing them up. What is your preferred way of viewing showreels, online or DVD?
Online.
Yep, most definitely. I remember a time when
wow, DVD?
Everything was a physical copy, and we used to have rooms full of DVDs. And showing my age, I remember when reels were received on VHS, going back a while. But as the studios have grown and the numbers of applicants have come through, we just can't keep physical copies. So everything now is online, and it gives candidates flexibility to update their show reels instantaneously. Once they add new work, we go in and we see the latest reel through that very same link.
And it's good for when someone applies to us, recruitment will normally do a first screen of all of the show reels, and then we'll forward them to the heads of department for whatever discipline. So rather than having to sort of walk over with a massive stack of DVDs, they can just click on a link, and it just makes it a bit easier for everyone. So online, always.
Not just show reels, CVs, breakdowns, portfolios, anything that a candidate wants us to see should be online.
Yeah.
And with sound or without? That's always a question we get asked.
Well,
I've got sound. That says I haven't got sound on my computer. So
the same. I think most of our heads of departments, when they're reviewing show reels, have the sound off.
Yeah, unless for animation, when they've got some lip sync.
That's it. Unless it's relevant to what we're looking at, feel free to put something there or not.
Okay. Cool. Let's have. Oh, somebody's asking, how important is the look of the CV? Should it look artistic, or should I just keep a focus on the look of the portfolio?
Creative CVs. Maybe I'm a bit traditional on this one, but a CV should be functional. Whilst it's great to express someone's creativity, don't forget that the purpose of the CV is to convey someone's background, experience, skills to us. That's what we want to see. If we lose that because of some crazy formatting or some creative images behind the information, it risks being lost.
And also, if you do have quite an artistic CV and we get you in for an interview, obviously when we're interviewing you, we'll have to try and pull out stuff from your CV to ask you about. And if you've got crazy pink font or whatever, it's going to be really hard for us to find the points that we need. So the rapport in the interview will be broken, and then it just gets a bit awkward. And also, if it's in some crazy colour, then we can't see our notes that we've written, so we won't remember who you are.
Fair enough. Oh, I always think I think one key thing for the show reel is a lot of people forget to put their contact details on them, and CVs can get lost or kind of taken away from the actual showreel. So I think that's key, isn't it, really?
Yeah, your online showreel, the last slide should be your contact details, your phone number, your email address, and your name. If we don't have the CV or if we don't have it to hand, then we can always contact the candidate and know exactly whose work we're looking at.
Cool. Are there any tips you could give about how to make a demo reel unique? Or is that kind of a bit of a general question? Tough one.
Well, when it comes to demo reels, I recommend that candidates sometimes tailor it to the studio that they're applying to, rather than having a one-size-fits-all approach to the showreel. Be aware of who you're sending your details into. So whilst you want your reel to stand out, you want it to stand out for the right reasons. So giving different studios what they want, for example, if you're applying to maybe a smaller studio or an advertising studio, they will want to see generalist work, whereas some of the larger film studios, more specialist. Keep it simple. We don't want anything to detract from the work. So yeah, making it unique, I'm not sure.
It's a risky one, that, isn't it, to go too unique. But yeah, exactly what Ben said, and as I sort of mentioned earlier on, photo reel, you know, that's what we want to see. That's the bread and butter of our work. And as we've touched on before, you know, doing one thing really, really well is going to stand out and make your work unique, rather than trying to do so much and it be a bit sort of average. Yeah, that's probably that.
Excellent. Oh, this is a good one from Katie. Would you rather somebody uploaded their CV onto their LinkedIn page on a job application and kind of you got the link, or do you like to get the hard copy as well?
I personally prefer having a hard copy than. I just find LinkedIn can be a bit restrictive with how your layout and stuff like that.
I think it's good to have the information on LinkedIn, but having a properly formatted CV is still the easiest way for us to look at candidates and review them. So I would say both.
Okay, excellent. I know David asked another question. We've had two guys ask this. It's kind of about basically, if we know the basics of a programming language, can we still include it in our resume?
Oh yeah.
Programming skills?
Yeah, we look for them for R&D roles, effects roles, pipeline roles. You know, we look for certain levels of programming for compositing, and it, you know, we need to see that people how much Python scripting they've done, mail scripting, you know, that kind of thing, for rigging, stuff like that. It's really important.
Say, yeah, having or being familiar with scripting in some form or other is going to help out every artist at the moment. Even if they don't need to use it in their day-to-day work, it helps them deal with our software teams and identifying pipeline issues and resolving them quicker if the artist can understand the technical aspects.
And what would you expect to see from a programmer CV showreel?
I'd rather not see pages and pages of script. It's good for us to see what kind of tools they may have developed, what kind of fixes they've created, the problems that they've dealt with. They will be working with artists in a lot of the positions, so seeing that background is good, and then the more technical questions will come out at the interview stage.
Yeah.
I see. And going back to the actual CV itself, is there a limit to how much detail you should include? You know, obviously, I think the standard rule is 1-2 pages max.
I think, you know, it's got to be clear and concise, and something that we can, you know, find the points quickly and easily when we're shortlisting, and again when we're interviewing people. You know, you don't need to go on about, you know, if you had a job at, I don't know, JD Sports, you don't need to list everything you did, like fill up the stock room and stuff, you know. You can just say it was a retail role, you know. So those are kind of roles, as we mentioned before, should be on your CV, but just you can just say what they are. And then the main emphasis should be on, you know, anything visual effects related you've done, teamwork related, you don't need to list, you know, I don't particularly look at the interest section when it's like a massive paragraph of I do jiu-jitsu and whatnot. It's nice to know, but you know, don't get too carried away on those kind of things.
The purpose of the CV is to secure that interview.
Yeah.
And making sure all the relevant information is present is key, and not going overboard.
Yeah.
Anything longer than 2 pages, it's again about things being lost. You want to make it as easy as possible for us as recruiters and the heads of department within the studios to see how that candidate can fit in.
Yeah, and then if you, what's a bugbear of mine, which some people sort of do is not have any work experience or educational dates in the wrong order. So it jumps around. So we like to see, you know, from most recent going backwards where people have worked or studied or done whatever, just because otherwise you're then trying to solve this puzzle of where were they then and stuff like that. So
I would say work history is definitely a key one. Software skills and proficiency.
Yeah.
It's something that people often don't put together. If somebody has used Maya, we'd like to know just how confident they are in that software. Not just that they've used it, but whether they consider themselves beginner or more senior.
Yeah, and even stuff like, you know, for people that are applying for rigging roles or modelling roles, if you've studied life drawing or anatomy studies, that's really important to put that on your CV as well, so we can see that you understand, you know, the human body and stuff like that.
Excellent. We've got a question saying, is it a good idea to create an online portfolio to show all the work you've done in more detail? Would you guys actually have time to go and see that? Or is it just literally all about the showreel because you're getting so many applications?
We kind of get both, really.
Maybe it's initially about the showreel.
Yeah.
Certainly, if someone has a large portfolio of work, you wouldn't want to put everything onto the showreel, just the most relevant work. Having the portfolio online enables us to go there if we want to see more of, for example, life drawing, art skills. That's where that background would be.
Yeah, it's quite nice if because on our careers link to put your showreel in. If you have got your own portfolio site, if you can make that link your showreel link of your portfolio, so we go straight into your portfolio but on the showreel page, and then we can have a sort of nose around portfolio as well. It just gives us that option to get a bit more info.
Let's see if we can go back to some of the questions that were submitted before we started. No, I think we've exhausted all of those ones. Is it okay if we take a bit longer to complete our showreel, considering the fact that then it's going to be a really, really good one? Or should you try and kind of join the company and gain experience? I suppose really you wouldn't really get into the company without that killer showreel. Is that right?
Yeah.
Kind
of.
Yeah, getting into any studio is all about timing.
Yeah.
Making sure that your work is in front of the right people, ready for the opportunity coming up. It's a fine line between putting something up quickly that may not be finished versus waiting a bit longer for the more refined end product. I would say you always want to showcase your work in the best possible light. So if it does mean waiting a little bit longer, then yeah, it's going to give us the best possible examples of work to review. We wouldn't want to be reviewing something that isn't finished that might give us the wrong impression of a candidate's true skills.
Yeah, and it's the same at Framestore really. I mean, that's why, as mentioned before, if people are coming in as runners throughout the year, you know, their dream effects role might not be there, you know, might not be there for them to apply to, and their reel might not be ready. But if they join the running team, you know, that allows them to sort of hone their skills for that role and then be considered when they're already in the company. So it's thinking about how else you can apply outside of your chosen field, if you like, you know, in a bit more of an entry-level route.
I would say once you have a reel that you're happy with, then apply.
Yeah.
And if in a few months' time you've updated that showreel or created different examples of work, you log back into your profile and update it.
Yeah.
Making sure that we've always got your best work in front of us.
Yeah.
I've got a question saying is Behance an accepted professional portfolio site? Do you really, guys
I
really
don't
have an
think I'm
opinion about
keen on
that?
it. Am I really? Do you have
I've
it?
heard of it. Showing our age now, aren't we?
Yeah, but stick to Vimeo.
Yeah, as long as they send the link, I suppose you guys are just
Yeah,
you're just going to
I
follow
mean,
it, aren't
YouTube
you?
can be a bit annoying with the ads that
Yeah.
pop up, but Vimeo is always a safe bet, especially if you want to sort of password protect anything on there as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. And what about applicants applying who aren't based in London? Obviously, they know the job's in London. You'd still consider them the same as guys that are in
Yeah,
London?
absolutely. I mean, often we don't know because we obviously look at Showreel first point, but obviously, again, it depends on when we're hiring for a project. You know, we might need people to start next week. Obviously, if you're living somewhere really far away, you might not be able to relocate in time, so it depends on timing as well. But we certainly, and as long as you have the right to work in the UK, obviously that's the main.
Well, being global studios as well, candidates can be considered for any location. It is about timing. So if someone needs either a work permit or a visa to work in a specific location, factoring in the processing times for the paperwork is often what determines whether or not we can consider a candidate for a specific role.
Okay.
But there's nothing to stop candidates applying from anywhere in the world, and we then line them up with suitable opportunities that they would be eligible for. I would say we have a very international community, not just here in London, but in each studio. Certainly in Canada, we now have a presence, and artists are becoming more and more globally mobile. And we encourage it. If an artist, even a junior coming straight out of education, wants to go and experience Canada, then Montreal might be the opportunity for them, where they don't have as much of a requirement for a minimum amount of experience. But sometimes if a candidate wants to go to Vancouver, for example, there you need to have 3 or 4 years under your belt in order to qualify for a work permit. Those are things that we as recruiters deal with every day. Candidates should definitely not think they can't apply just because they're outside the UK.
So a lot of people obviously asking about runner positions. If they want to get into an artist position, is a runner position a good way to do this? We've kind of covered that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think people are really, there's a lot of questions coming through about that. So
to spend a bit more time on the runner role, because it does change from studio to studio. At MPC, for example, our film runners primarily want to go into production. So their goal is to be either production assistant or coordinator with a view to becoming producers in the long run. So we tend to take candidates who want to take a more artistic route into departments directly as junior artists. Whereas I think the runner teams...
Yeah, so the running team at Framestore is based on people that want to be junior artists, so across all disciplines. So as mentioned before, we train them in paint and roto and tracking. They have a mentor. They work on shots from Framestore films. They have to sort of progress through the mentoring scheme. And then what happens is if a show says to me, Anna, I need 2 trackers for 3 weeks, I'll go straight to the running team and pull someone from running into that role, because I don't want to hire in for that long, and I want to give runners a chance to sort of push themselves forward. So there might be a bit of time where you're sort of going back and forth from running and in a department on a secondment. But then when we do get a junior role, at the start of a project, we'll normally then offer it to the runner that's been doing all that training. Sometimes, one of our runners is pretty much ready to go into modelling. We've just got to wait for the next lot of shows to start asset build for him. And it all depends on what's going on in the business as to how people can progress. But the whole point of the runner training program is to push people into artist roles.
We don't want career runners.
No.
We want candidates who want to progress to the next level. In fact, production assistants at MPC are exclusively hired from the runner pool. We don't look external for that level position, and we promote our runners as soon as we can. Whilst they're waiting for the opportunity to come up, they're spending 50% of their time training. We have production school that's designed to give them the skills they need to move upwards. They are holiday cover when our production team go away, and they do go back and forth between running and production until something more long-term comes up.
And the good thing about running is as well, you get to meet everyone. You know who everyone is. You meet, in the kitchen chatting to a CG soup who might say, "Oh, show me your showreel," and majority of our runners who have been promoted into a department say the one thing they miss about running is the speaking to so many different people, because obviously when you're an artist you're a bit sort of on your machine focus, and that's great, but the kind of social side does kind of drop off a bit, so it's a really good opportunity to sort of get your face known and get to know who's who.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there a kind of a time frame from kind of going in as a runner to going up into senior positions? Is there any kind of, example of how long that takes? I mean, quite a few questions through about that. If there isn't, that's fine.
It all depends on what's going on in the business. If we suddenly get a load of work where we need junior artists, then we'll always push people through from running. One of my compositors, I hired him at a degree show. Was it last summer or the summer before? No, the summer before last. He came into running. He was running for about 6 weeks, then he went into paint and roto, and then he was in paint and roto for a year and has been promoted into comp. So he's moved through really fast. He's super talented. But then we also have the work there for him. If we have a bit of a break in productions, then we can't guarantee it. And it also depends on how people perform as a runner. Someone could be a runner and a really good artist, but if they're, got an undesirable attitude, shall we say, we're not likely to put them on a floor, representing, the running team with that. So you've kind of got to get both right.
I think that's one of the key points that always seems to come up, is that you've got to be a team player and you've got to be a good personality as well. It's about you working in the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Getting yourself out there and connecting, and definitely. Okay. Got a question from VAR, who says, you're recruiting quite a lot at the moment. I mean, like you said, it's busy, and so he's asking, is there a sense of emergency to apply in the following weeks? I mean, surely it's just a case of, if you're ready to apply if there's jobs out there.
I would say there are always new productions coming in. We have between 10 and 15 shows in production at any given time. Some of them may just be starting up. MPC's about to start work on Terminator 5, Batman versus Superman. We have Disney's The Jungle Book coming in. All of those shows are ramping up later in the year. And we want people to apply when they're ready, and we can line them up for those opportunities. So there is a sense of urgency, but I would reiterate that you don't want to put work that you're not happy with on your application. That's the most important thing. When you're ready, submit your application, and we can then start the discussion about when positions are coming up.
Excellent.
If there aren't any actual runner positions advertised, you would still accept applications?
We normally keep the runner position on our website always.
Okay, cool.
Because we try and split the running team, so we have an equal number of 3D runners and 2D runners. Obviously, the 3D runners can go into so many more areas than what 2D can, so it's always going to be a bit bigger. And also, we don't know what's going to happen. We might have someone go on secondment at short notice, so we need to backfill. So we're sort of always keeping an eye on who's out there for running.
Whether it's running or, in fact, all disciplines, you can apply speculatively through the website. We will have hot jobs, the most pressing needs highlighted on the website, but candidates can register their interest against any discipline so that we know who they are, ready for when we need them.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we're going to go with one more question before I wrap it up. Katie Halloran, I think is her surname. Is it difficult for games artists to get into 3D modelling?
Modelling specifically, that's an interesting one, because there are some skills that transition very nicely from games into film. Recently we had an environments project, Maleficent, which needed the skill set someone would have developed within a games environment, and obviously there's a period where they would need to adapt to the film pipeline, but there are skills that cross over. Also, a lot of game cinematics are quite high-end at the moment. So again, the transition is easier. You would be looking at coming in at a different level. So a senior artist within a games environment is not going to come into film as a senior artist. It does depend on individual skills, and we'd evaluate that as and when the application comes in.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for surviving that grilling. Some really, really good advice. And obviously that's all going to be, it's recorded, so we'll be loading that onto our website in the next couple of weeks. So anybody who's kind of missed any of those pointers, then they can obviously refresh their memories. Apologies to those of you that didn't get your questions answered. We were inundated. I was kind of doing my best to listen to you guys and then scroll through and try and pick out a really good variety. But I think the key kind of questions that we get asked a lot at Escape as well got answered there. So really useful. Just very, very quickly before we finish, there were a couple of questions about where could you train to obviously work in London if you're based in London, or even if you're not. Then obviously, you know, Escape Studios do provide training in both 3D and 2D skills. Obviously we've got all of the information on our website, but full-time, part-time and remote online training information is there, so obviously you can have a look at that, and you can always ask us some questions, contact the admissions team if you've got any specific questions. We've also got taster courses, so if you want to give it a go before you commit to a full course, then obviously online 2 weeks or 1 day tasters. We've actually got one happening on Friday, and there's 1 spot left on the 3D taster. So if you fancy having a try of Maya in the classroom for a day, then by all means get in touch and we'll get you booked on. That space is still available on the website. Okay, so obviously if you are interested in finding out more about getting work in the industry and also training in the industry, we've got a VFX careers guide which has recently been released. You can download that now from our website. We've obviously got more webinars coming up, so just keep an eye on our website for that, and you can sign up to our newsletter as well. That comes out on a monthly basis, and that gives you a lot of updates about what's happening at Escape, what new courses are coming up, because we're designing new courses all the time. So obviously all of the links are there on your screen right now. We've got open days as well now. We run them every 2 weeks on a Wednesday morning, 9:30 till 1:30. The next one is next week on Wednesday. Still spaces available if you want to come along. If you can't get down to the studios, you can also just apply for an online tour, and we send you a YouTube video link. That's a tour of the facilities, but there's also a separate one which demonstrates our online courses as well in the virtual learning environment. It's really comprehensive, really gives you an idea of what it would be like if you wanted to learn remotely if you couldn't get into the studios. There's our contact details. Feel free to email admissions, give us a call. It'll be me or my colleague Flora or Jasmine, who will obviously be more than happy to speak to you. But that's it for now. Thank you once again to Ben and Anna for joining us this evening. A really, really good webinar, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.